What's up, you amazing people? I hope you're having a fantastic day. You are, of course, watching and listening to the Daily Dirty 30, also known as the DDT, here on The Kevin Lee Show. And I am your host, Kevin Lee. Now, for those of you who do not know what the DDT is all about, let me take a moment to explain. You see, it's a show that airs live at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, Monday through Friday, and it's where I get to spend 30 minutes telling you, the viewer, all about the things that bother me today. What do I get out of it? It's easy. It's therapeutic. Why should you tune in? That's even easier. It's entertaining. Sound like a fair trade? Good. Let's get to it. Hello, friends, and happy Friday. As you notice, the time is a little late. It's about 20 minutes later than I normally would go on. So for me, it's not necessarily a happy Friday. There was something that, some technical difficulties that had to be worked out. But they're worked out, and they're done, and they're gone, so we're done with it. Yay! Now, a couple of things before we get started here. Of course, you know where you're at. You're watching the Daily Dirty 30 here on The Kevin Lee Show, a show that's supposed to start airing at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, but sometimes things happen. And regardless, we're still going to go for half an hour. That's all that matters. You might notice there's some different things with the graphics here. If you notice in the bottom left corner, you'll see my name looks different. I have a question. If you're watching this right now, or if you see it on replay, make a comment and let me know if you like it. So is this going to be something you like, or would you rather have something like this? The more minimal version I usually use. Something a little bit more bold. I don't know. I thought maybe I'll try the bold one tonight and see how it works. And speaking of tonight, we're going to talk about things that may not be as they seem. How apropos is that, considering all the things that just happened in the last 15 minutes? What we're talking about when we say things that may not be as they seem. There's lots of things that you might see or come across in your life, on the news, in history books, and you're going to take them at face value. And I'm just reminding you that we should always be willing to question everything, because it's not that there isn't truth to what they're saying, or even a lot of truth to what they're saying. Sometimes there is your truth, which happens to be a little biased, if we will admit it to ourselves. We all fall into this category. We all have a tendency of putting our own bias into things. It's only human nature, and so that's not necessarily the worst thing. I mean, like I said, we're all humans, so we're going to do it. We're all capable of doing it, and we're all more or less going to do it, in our lifetime at some point or another. Sometimes more often than not. Sometimes we don't like to admit it, but it's true. It's what we do. First thing we're going to talk about are things that may not be as they seem is, I'm just going to bring a picture up right here. So there's a woman on the screen. In fact, I'm going to bring it up a little bigger so you can see it. This woman. What ethnicity or nationality or race do you think that she might be? Do you think she's Puerto Rican? Do you think she's black? Do you think she's white? Do you think she's Jamaican? What do you think she is? This is not a trick question. I'm going to tell you that right now. This is not a trick question. I'm just curious if you can tell me what color, which is a silly thing to even say, but what color this woman is. Okay? I'm going to give you another shot, and also a recent shot, different angle. Maybe it might help you clear things up a little bit. We're going to go right here. Same woman. So when you look at her here, just not her hair, but when you look at her on the screen here, do you think that she is white or black or something else? Maybe Asian, who knows? Again, this is not a trick question. I'm not trying to trip you up. I want you to honestly tell me what you're thinking. Do you think she is white or black or other? Hispanic, maybe Puerto Rican, something. Okay? The reason why I'm bringing this up is because she's white. And we know this because she told us. Now, why is that a big deal, you might be wondering? It is an odd question. The reason why this is sort of a big deal is because of why she came out as being white. I'll show you another picture here. This is her probably in high school, I'm guessing. Somewhere around that age, maybe even a little younger. But here is what happened. It says white GWU. It's George Washington University, which as far as I know is a historically black college or university. a professor of African Studies who faked being black her entire career, only confessed online days after other black scholars started questioning her background. Again, there's a picture from when she was younger, and here's a picture more modern day. Okay. She spent her entire professional career after graduating college and becoming a teacher. She got her way into African studies by claiming her blackness. As you'll see very shortly, she's clearly not black. Now, some people are saying she only came out because she was going to be outed anyways, and she wanted to be able to get out in front of it and at least tell her side of the story from her angle, her truth. So that could be. That absolutely could be. But yeah. So her name is Jessica Krug. She revealed in a Medium blog post on Thursday she is actually white and that she has been deceiving her friends and colleagues. The 38-year-old said she had publicly identified as a black throughout her career. George Washington University said it is currently investigating the blog post, but refused to comment any further, which I think is a wise decision. All right, so here is, in fact, the blog post on Medium. It's right here. The little M means Medium. This is the blog post that she put on, and it's entitled in the front section here. It says, "For the better part of my adult life, every move I made, every relationship I formed has been rooted in the napalm toxic soil of lies." And not just any lies. It goes on to explain to her what she had done. It says, to an escalating degree over my adult life, I have eschewed my lived experience as a white Jewish child in suburban Kansas City. So she grew up as a white Jewish girl from Kansas City, and for whatever reason, at some point in her life, something clicked and she decided she was black and she was going to be black, and everyone in her life was going to know her as being black until she finally decided that it was time to come clean for whatever reason. But there's an interesting point. Things aren't always as they seem. Now, you might say this is an extreme case, and I'm sure to an extent it is an extreme case, but it's not rare in general of things that we think might be one way when they're actually another. Speaking of that, we're going to talk about Trump for just a minute. Apparently, Trump scrambles to recover from reports that he called fallen troops losers. Now, I'm not saying he did. I'm not saying he didn't. I'm saying other people are claiming he did, and he's denying he did. I have no idea. I truly don't. I have no idea if he did or not. And that's not even the point. It's how we perceive things. Now, in his mind, he might truly believe that he did not do this. And there might be other people who will swear up and down that they know he did. They heard him say it. They were told. Who knows? Okay. That's not even the point. The point is that this is the point. And things are not always as they seem. You can't always take somebody or one person on their word. You just can't. It says Donald Trump says he believes former Chief of Staff John Kelly is behind claims he called dead troops losers and suckers, and attacks Gold Star father as he claims he did want to go to Marines' graves. I believe that was somewhere in France. This happened, I guess, about a year or two ago, and you actually might have even heard the story, remember hearing the story. It's sad if it's true, but again, this is Donald Trump. Nothing should surprise us, good or bad, one way or the other. Nothing should surprise us what he's going to say, what he's going to do. It's just who he is, right? And there you go. Pointing right at you. It says President Donald Trump speculated that it could have been a guy like John Kelly who badmouthed him in the Atlantic magazine. Trump furiously denied a report he referred to fallen troops as losers. Kelly is a former Marine general who served as White House Chief of Staff and whose son was killed in action in Afghanistan. Again, I'm not picking on Trump. This is not a beat up on Trump thing. You can if you want. I don't mind. You absolutely can if you want. What this article actually went on to say, the report says Trump canceled a visit to an American cemetery in Paris in 2018 because he worried his hair would be disheveled by the rain. And I actually do kind of remember hearing some blip about that. Not even to say that it was true then, but allegedly this was something that occurred. He reportedly asked, "Why should I go to that cemetery? It's filled with losers." Let's hope this is not true, just because that would just be the most terrible thing to say. Trump said Friday the fog was as dense as I've ever seen. Also said Paris traffic was a concern. It would have taken us forever. So apparently he couldn't get there. There wasn't a good time for it. It was too foggy. Traffic was terrible. His hair might get disheveled by the rain. Sorry, I'm just trying to picture Trump with like looking like a wet dog. It's a terrible picture. I recommend you don't do it. Don't. I know you don't. Oh, too late. Yeah. So that is something else we can talk about. Things happen in life, right? You can be in an event, and I'm sure you can think of some point in your life where you've come into a disagreement with a friend, a family member, coworker, where you were both in a situation. You both witnessed something happen, or you were even involved with each other in a situation. And something happened where you disagree on what the outcome was. You say, no, that's not what happened. This is how it went down. They say, oh, no, you were wrong. This is how it happened. It happens all the time. Our memories are not that great. They're just not. And it's not even just about an old age thing. You can be 7 years old and have issues with remembering something 3 years later about a conversation or confrontation that you had with a friend or schoolmate or teacher or parent or sibling, right? Same thing in high school, college, doesn't matter. Any point in your life, you think you remember something exactly the way it happened, but chances are you don't. And this causes a lot of problems, especially in the day and age that where we live in this world with all the social media, all the posts, all the tweets, all the Instagram posts, the pictures, what have you, the comments you're going to make on things, and they will come back and haunt you because you won't even remember that you did them half the time. Or maybe you were just in a bad season, or maybe you were intoxicated and you don't even know what you did. And everyone else kind of remembers it from the way that they remember it, right? It's possible. But that is the point I'm trying to make. Not everything it seems the way it is the way it actually happened, or the way it's even happening now in front of you. I mean, I'm sure I will do a recording like this show, and I will come back to it a month from now, 2 months from now, a year from now. And I'm like, oh, let me look at that, and I'll play it, and I'll be like, wait, I did that? I had that conversation? I talked about that? Or if I do remember it, which I probably would, I would remember potentially, possibly, maybe a little different than it actually was. And I might be surprised to see, indeed, that it was different than I thought it was. Now, here is going to be another reason, or the reason, I guess I should say, of why I kind of brought this up in the first place. Okay, and this is going to be example 3. Today, a report came out that was produced by the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project called ACLED, which found that of the 7,750 protests linked to the Black Lives Matter movement that took place in the U.S. between May 26th through August 22nd, only 222 were not peaceful. Now, I'm not saying that's not true. I'm just saying it seems a little low. The reason being is I have a brain and I have eyes, and I watch the news. I go on Twitter. I check social media posts, and you can't get away from this stuff. Every single day, you're going to turn the news, and there was some riot somewhere. Someone was fighting. Towns were being burned down. Buildings were being destroyed. Things were being blown up. Cars were being whatever. And this happens every single day. And you can say, well, sure, it hasn't been that many days since then. And I agree, but it happens more than once in a day. And how did they even count these things? This is the thing that bothers me. People will make a study, and maybe you've learned on how studies work. Maybe you've worked with studies. Maybe you work with studies right now. I do not know. I'm not trying to tell you something you already know. But the thing is that anyone who's done any statistical analysis in your life, taken classes on it, done it in the field, you'll realize how easy it is to manipulate data, right? So if you want to get a point across, you will. I can think of a perfect example. Now, this might disturb some of you, and I'm sorry if it does, but cholesterol medication. Some of you might know what it is. Some of you might even be on it. Some of you might have a parent or a sibling that's on it. So you're probably familiar. It's something that helps you with your cholesterol levels, because cholesterol levels are obviously too high, and you need to take medication to lower it, allegedly. The problem with all this is the studies they used to push all this cholesterol medication were nonsense. There's proof of it now. You can go on the internet. You can just go look up the studies, go look at the controversies, the reports that have been written on it, see how people lost their jobs, people have been getting prosecuted over it. They've literally put millions upon millions upon millions of people on medication, which might be helpful to some of them, but to many of them not. And what it's doing is it's actually going to hurt them in the long run and cause them to become dependent upon this, and if they stop taking it, it could hurt them. But But they said that the numbers proved it. The numbers showed emphatically that this was the way it was, and this is the truth, and this is the facts. It came out years later that they lied. They omitted certain facts. They take certain parts of the data, and they want it to look good for their cause. That's what they do. That's when you find out who paid for a study, because that means a lot. Now, that being said, again, I'm not saying that this study on this exact report is way off. I think it is off, but it may not be way off. To say that out of 7,750 protests that happened in, 5 months, only 220 of them were violent. How do they consider, or what do they consider to be violent? Do they consider a certain amount of injuries? Does there have to be a certain amount of police officers called? Does it have to be a number of people injured? Does there have to be someone shot or killed, or how many arrests they have to make? I mean, how do they actually decide? And the thing is, I tried doing a quick dive into this because it just came out today. I couldn't find the data. Surprise, surprise. I will. Don't worry. I'll find the data. But the thing that we all have to keep in mind is that, frankly, we have to be careful. Now I'm going to bring this up on the screen so everyone can see it. So this was from the article. Again, report finds that 93% of Black Lives Matter protests in the U.S. were peaceful. And I agree, most of them were. The overwhelming majority, by far, were. Most people in the Black Lives Matter movement and those who support the sentiment are absolutely peaceful. It is a smaller number of people who are violent, a smaller number who are the troublemakers, but they're there. And actually, they're everywhere. They spread out, they travel, and they're a dangerous group. Okay, but again, this isn't even necessarily about that. We have to take into consideration what these reports say, because they try to convince people that something isn't an issue when you can clearly see with your own eyes that it is. I mean, you can just, and I'm not even talking about going on the news, you can just go on any source of media. It could be on the internet, it could be articles, it could be live video, it could be the news of some sort, it could even be something try to be more quote unquote neutral, like the Associated Press or Reuters. But you're still going to see that there is violence happening all the time, every day in, day out, when it comes to the entire Black Lives Matter movement. And I thought something else was interesting. Let me see if it's the next slide. Well, it's so it doesn't. I actually don't think I captured the slide. But what it did talk about is that those 10,000 or so, or what? How many was it? The where are we at? So it's over the 10,000 protests. Those weren't all the protests included in the study. I'm surprised I didn't get it. I apologize. I thought I had it. Here's the next slide. I guess not. So, but it said, yeah. So it says the overwhelming majority of the protests, more than 10,100 involved peaceful protesters. The research only found that 5% or under of the 570 of the protests did participate, engage in violence. Again, how do they decipher? How do they decide? How do they choose what is considered violent? If you say, only 570 of the protests, participants engaged in violence, do they have to draw blood? Do they have to have an ambulance called? What do they consider violence? Does a weapon have to be used? Chances are, if you actually got the raw data on all these protests and saw all the injuries and everything, I can almost guarantee you would not find the same results that they did. Now, again, it's probably for protests that were considered to be violent or having violence occurring at them, it's probably somewhere around 15%, maybe give or take, but it's probably not 7%. And the point is that you deserve the truth. You should know the truth. You shouldn't be spoon-fed something that someone wants you to believe just because, well, frankly, they want you to believe it. It's not fair. It's not right. It's not good. Something else from this article that bothered me was this next section. And I'm just going to give you a blurb of it because we don't need to read the whole thing. It said, in the protests that became violent, so just the ones that they actually became or considered violent, they either involved state-sanctioned violence, such as violent intervention from local, state, or federal authorities, or counter-protesters from extremist groups. The police or military disproportionately used force while intervening in demonstrations. How do you measure that, right? Read this sentence. This is the things that people, the average, everyday American, and even person in the world is being fed every single day. In the protests that became violent, they either involved state-sanctioned violence. How do you define state-sanctioned violence because a cop got physical with another person. What if that person attacked the cop first? Is that violence then? If the cop was attacked first and he was defending himself, I'm not saying that's the case. Again, there's a lot of issues when it comes to the police and it comes to their responses in these protests. And their hands aren't clean. I'm not making excuses for them. But what is important is the fact that the way that they try to twist these stories and twist the facts should scare you. I mean, it really, really should. It scares me. It scares me every day because if you look at this, I'm sorry, but if you just look at this, it says they either involve state-sanctioned violence, such as violent intervention from local, state, and federal authorities, or counter-protesters. Again, I don't know what your thoughts are or what you think or what you believe about what's going on in Black Lives Matter. And frankly, I don't care at this moment for this conversation. There are people who, for example, okay, there was a counter-protest in Portland over the weekend where a gentleman, as we covered it here, and I'm sure you saw it everywhere else, a man was standing in the street with his friend. Another person came up, confronted him, and within seconds pulled out a gun and shot him. We're not going to dive into all that right now. We could actually do a whole hour special about that. But that person believed he was in danger for whatever reason. That's what he claims now. But of course, now he's also dead. I don't know if you've heard about this story. I can't remember his name offhand, but he shot a counter-protester who was a Trumpster, if you will. He appeared to be unarmed. It seemed to be in cold blood. Can't say it was, but it appeared to be that way. So is he considered to be a counter-protester from an extremist group who is unarmed, standing in the street, who then has some stranger walk up and shoot him? I mean, is that considered to be violence? Is that person considered to be a counter-protester from an extremist group who's just standing there doing nothing? Allegedly. I mean, we only saw the video right before the shooting, but the guy just walked up on him at that point, so I can't imagine really much of anything else occurred before that point. So, and also the police or military disproportionately use force while intervening in demonstrations. How do you judge that? By what criteria? Who makes up those decisions? You see, the thing is, they'll draw a line in the sand and they'll realize, oh, we don't have enough numbers on our side. So they'll just move that line over just a little bit every time, just inch it over and inch it over. It happens. It happens all the time. And it's important that we keep this in mind. So we're already about 23, 24 minutes. And again, we did start very late today, and I do apologize. I had an issue where my audio got muted and it wouldn't unmute. So I had to unplug everything and shut it down and start back up again and plug everything in, and then it worked. So I do apologize. But yeah, that was kind of the story for today. It's important that we keep in mind that whenever you're watching the news, regardless if it's a trusted source for you or not, regardless if you enjoy CNN or if you enjoy Fox News, you enjoy MSNBC, or you only enjoy things print like New York Times or LA Times or what have you. I mean, that's fine, but please, when you consume any type of media, take it with a grain of salt. Double check the sources, and don't just check sources, quote unquote, on your side. And I know that's a kind of a crappy thing to say, but it's the truth. I mean, people on CNN, people at CNN are very left-leaning. Most of the people at Fox News are right-leaning. Not all, because they do have some people on the left there, and a lot of the new management that's taken over is more centered at the very least. But there's still plenty of conservatives there, people with agendas at Fox News. And don't just check your red state, newspaper online, or check something that is a left publication. I mean, check, I don't know, 3 from every side. Try to find independent sources. Try to go to, I mean, I really truly want to say BBC, but over the last couple of years, BBC just hasn't been so independent. They just haven't. I don't know what it is. Even Al Jazeera for a while was good, and then that went bad. I've seen a lot of bias even in some of the reporters at Reuters, AP, even AP. I've seen a couple of reports here and there that seem to be to the one side or the other side and not very factual. And they weren't opinion pieces. They were supposed to be just flat out facts cases, and they weren't. That being said, just be careful out there whenever you're watching anything, consuming anything, even shows like this. Double check everything, find the sources, check links, do whatever you have to. Google, don't Google. Don't Google. Check the internet, but use other sources like DuckDuckGo. That seems to be a pretty good one. Not perfect, but it does seem to give you more choices than, Google. That being said, this is going to be the end of our week for the day, for the Daily Dirty 30. So I want to thank you all for participating this week and watching the shows and watching the replays. They have been up quite a bit, so thank you for whoever out there is doing it. Just make sure that you comment, like, subscribe, and hit that little bell for the notification so you get notified whenever we go live. That would be helpful for you. That being said, this weekend, of course, as every weekend, on Saturdays, I do a show called The Libertarian Hour that airs at 1 p.m. Eastern. It's about a 1 hour long show where we tackle libertarian issues. Okay, so we are in the middle of a series called Myths and Misunderstandings within the Libertarian Party, and tomorrow we're going to be talking about crime and justice. So where we start these talks at, where we start this information at is right here. If you go over to the lp.org page, and you go over to where it says Libertarian Party, you scroll down just a few spots where it says On the Issues. They have a list of 10 issues that they address completely. These areas, so we have actually been through, and I'm going to go through it right quick just for a second here. So we started out on immigration and borders, and then we talked about war on drugs, then gun ownership, healthcare, foreign policy. Last week we talked about education, and tomorrow we're going to be talking about crime and justice. So it'll be fun, I promise. It'll be interesting. It'll be informative. We're going to talk a little bit about what they actually talk about and state on the Libertarian official website under this issue of crime and justice, as well as we'll see what they tackle on their platform page about it. We'll also bring up a couple of articles, a few videos of other libertarians on how they view it. But basically, if you're a libertarian or even libertarian-minded, you probably already have a pretty good idea that libertarians have a major issue with our current state of crime and justice in the U.S. So that won't be shocking or surprising to you. But yeah, so you won't want to miss it tomorrow. It'll be 1 p.m. Eastern. And of course, you can always watch them on replay. They're going to be on YouTube, Fox, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, Twitch, so on and so forth. One other thing I do want to touch base on again is because we do this about once a week, I want to remind everyone that we have a web page that you can go to, website actually, called thekevinleeshow.com. We make it very simple here, thekevinleeshow.com. On there, you're going to find anything and everything you need to know about this podcast, Daily Dirty 30, as well as the Libertarian Hour and my other podcast, Whatever with Kevin. You'll have access to the actual podcast pages. Okay, then. I just lost my mouse. I have no idea what's going on, folks. I think everything is possessed. Let me see if I can get my mouse back. Hold on a second. Nope. I swear this thing. USB device not recognized. Of course it's not. Why would it be? Why would it be? It's not recognized. Oh my goodness gracious. I swear to goodness. Did it work that time? Hey, we have a mouse back. Hey. Woo! Technical difficulties. I swear, I think I'm going to turn this computer off for a day and give it a rest. Now that we've made it through that, folks, it's so exciting. Yeah, so go ahead to the website, kevinleeshow.com. Check it out whenever you get a chance. And as always, if you do not know, the end of every single show, what we try to do is show you what's called, we tried to show you what I call a happy ending. the reason why we have these is because, sometimes the news isn't always so happy and so good. And, we want to be able to talk about things that are happier and show things that are happier. That should not be auto playing. I apologize. So we're going to do that right now. We're going to close out the show, as we always do now, with a happy ending. So we're gonna cut to that, and then we're just gonna say goodnight. So I thank you for spending time with us this week, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. If you get a chance, check us out on the. Oh, something else I did not have a chance to plug yet. We are going to be doing a special on the Libertarian Hour on Sunday. It's going to actually be a roundtable discussion. You're not going to want to miss it. It's going to involve a very interesting cast of characters. We have a candidate for the U.S. Senate, a candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives. We also have a campaign manager, as well as others. So you aren't going to want to miss it. I promise. So check it out. We'll be at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. So it'll be 4 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. 4 p.m. Eastern. Check it out. But yeah, that's it, guys. So you have a good one. We will talk to you later. Oops, that's not going to work either. I'm going to have to share a different screen. All right, we'll try this now. There you go. All right, guys. Have a good one.